Am I wrong for making my son take a paternity test? This is a mess, and I would appreciate opinions from unbiased people. It was recommended that I post here and another page. I, female 39, have 2 kids, male 17 and female 10. When I was 21, I had a one-night stand which resulted in my son Austin, and the father wanted nothing to do with my child. When my son was 3, I met my husband Mark, male 38. My son adores my husband and calls him father. Austin met his current girlfriend through Mark's best friend Ellen, her father. Macy and Austin have been close since they were young, and we were all thrilled when we found out they were dating. After we found out, Mark and I sat Austin down and explained that we're happy for him, but we needed him to know the importance of safe sex, whether it was happening or not. He was disgusted, but said he understood, and we left it at that. For context, my son is what others describe as shy and soft-spoken. He's really sensitive and takes harsh comments/actions to heart. We thought everything was fine with him until he came home crying. He eventually told us Macy had cheated on him. I was angry and urged my son to leave, but my husband calmed us both and asked to speak with Austin privately. Essentially, he asked Austin what he wanted to do and if he wanted us to stop seeing Macy and her father. Austin said he didn't want that and wanted to work things out with Macy. I was upset but didn't say anything, and ever since that happened, I've hated seeing her around. All I think about when I see her is my son distressed and crying his eyes out. I act cordial around her, but I don't like her. Around February, Austin came home looking rather upset again, so I sat down with him and asked what's going on. I wasn't expecting to hear him say what he said to me. Macy's pregnant. I was furious. I told him I expected better from him. I also said that before anything happened, he needed to do a paternity test. He was angry that I suggested she cheated again, but I didn't like how she was suddenly pregnant. When Mark came home from work, I filled him in and he was equally upset. We all sat down and discussed it. Austin explained that I demanded a paternity test was done, and Mark wasn't happy to hear that. I explained that she's cheated before. She could have cheated again. That led to a huge argument before we all calmed down. I asked if her parents knew. Apparently not. He said she agreed to tell them tonight. And sure enough, about an hour later, Mark gets an angry call from Alan demanding that my son marries his daughter. And if Austin refuses, he demands that he pay child support and stay out of the kid's life. Of course, we were all angry and exhausted. So I said that nothing was happening until a paternity test was done, and I wasn't taking the word of a cheating little girl. He blew up at us, and it was radio silence after the call. Macy was then told she can no longer see Austin, and he took it out on me. A few weeks ago, Alan contacted us and agreed to do a paternity test. I asked quite a sudden change, but he ignored me. He said he set up the appointment for May 5th. Austin went with Mark. He said he didn't want to be around me. It stung, and I won't lie, it made me cry when he said that. Results finally came in a few nights ago, and he isn't the father. He was shattered. But instead of apologizing, he screamed that this was my fault, and he would have never known. He hasn't said much to me since. Maybe I was wrong for making him do a paternity test, but I was only looking out for my son. Was I wrong for making him take a paternity test? You're not wrong. The girl was a known cheater. Your son was an easy mark. He is young, sensitive, and hurt. This pregnancy would have affected his entire life going forward had he been the father. He will appreciate your insistence on the paternity test after he has a chance to sort his emotions. Or pay child support for a child that isn't his, just to have her throw that fact in his face 10 years down the road. Finding out now is the best scenario. Or he stays with her and she continues to cheat and raise a child that isn't his. He will understand one day. He's hurting right now and you're just the person he took it out on. Once he understands the gravity of the situation and what it takes to raise a child, he will thank you. Exactly. At 17, my mother got a lot of volatile, displaced anger thrown at her from me. Looking back, I think I raged at her because she was a safe person. By that, I mean even though there may have been consequences to my actions, I knew no matter what she wouldn't leave or reject me. Opie, your son is taking this out on you because he trusts that you love him and will be there for him when the dust settles. As counterintuitive as that may sound, it's safer for him to direct all his pain and anger at you than at the ex-girlfriend. You did the right thing getting the test. Continue to be there for your son as he processes this heavy ordeal, and eventually he'll come to understand. This applies to all ages. A friend told me the other night that she'd heard a loud house full of yelling and screaming is one where the child/children feel safe to express their feelings and opinions with their parents. It's the quiet houses that you should worry about. 1,000,000% not wrong. He will appreciate it one day. I'm not sure why your husband was so against the paternity test from the start though. Since your husband was against it, your son feels like you're in the wrong for pushing on it. He's just dealing with a broken heart right now. Don't take it to heart. My take on the husband is that maybe this is a sensitive topic for him, since he's taken on a fatherly role to Opie's son who isn't biologically his. This is obviously a very different situation, and Opie is in the right. But I wonder if Opie's immediate jump to a paternity test has triggered something for the husband about Opie not seeing him as Austin's real father, or something to that extent. Next story. 18 years ago today, I was essentially erased from my family's existence. Today marks 18 years since I was told that the man I called Dad my entire life got DNA test results back and confirmed I wasn't his biological son. It also marks 18 years since we've spoken. In his eyes, regardless of raising me my entire life, I don't exist. The kicker is that my mother is still with him and lies to everyone about his relationship with me. I am not welcome in their home, and there are 0 pictures of me or my children displayed. I've effectively been erased from existence, at least in his head. He and my mom married prior to the Vietnam War, and when he returned, he decided he didn't want to be married anymore. So they split, and she started seeing someone in the office she worked. He got jealous and wanted her back, so they got back together. Apparently, my conception occurred during that break. In the 18 years since we last spoke, I've learned who my biological father is, though he will not recognize the fact even with conclusive DNA tests. I've learned of at least 4 half-siblings, all of which are significantly older than me. While I've been able to connect with them, there really isn't any type of relationship there. The biggest impact this event had on me was increasing my issues with abandonment and feelings of worthlessness. It negatively impacted my ability to form meaningful relationships and continued to make me feel alone in the world. By all observations, I have a decent life. I'm a father to 2 wonderful children, involved in a community, and helped at their respective schools. But I still feel out of place, like I'm playing pretend around others. I constantly second-guess every interaction I have and never feel worthy of anyone else's time. It has been a major struggle. Battling anxiety and depression at the same time only makes it worse. Isolation of working from home plays into it, but I am happy in my current company. Only a select few people in my real life actually know any of this, and I feel like I'd be even more of an outcast if I told others. I just put on a smile when I'm in public and pretend like there isn't a huge hole in me. I don't even expect anyone to even read this whole bumbling spewing of word salad, but at least I've told the universe. If you are still reading this, I just want to say thank you for taking the time. I see you. I hear you. It sucks when someone else's problems become ours. Mostly the situation sounds like a him problem, not a you problem. Unfortunately, your mom and he have made it a you problem. The world has your back. Keep being the most you can be. Your validation comes from you, not another single person alive gets that work. Thank you. It's definitely difficult when people from my childhood ask how my dad is. I suppressed my feelings about the situation so long, but thankfully counseling has helped. You don't have to lie. Lots of people ask me why my dad wasn't around for my childhood. At first, I would lie or dance around it, but I realized it's so much better to say he was an alcoholic. I'm not hurting him by being honest. People don't look down on me for his choices. I've reconnected with my dad and still love him, but I'm still honest when people ask. It's my truth. Feel free to tell yours. The way your parents have treated you says more about them than it does about you. No child deserves that kind of BS. Yes, this. Exactly this. The father thinks someone's genetic material matters more than all the time they spent building a relationship. The fact that he can just tear it down in a second speaks volumes about him as a human being. Those volumes, of which there are enough to fill a small library, just say insecure, hurtful, self-centered dumpster fire of a human being over and over again for 4,000 pages, and have a middle finger embossed on a cover. The mother is either complicit or so horrifically mistreated as to be cowed into going along with it. Either way, it makes me want to vomit. Opie's family's where they find it. These wastes of oxygen are not deserving of him. He deserves friends and family who love him and accept him as he is. Thank you for the message. A new study was just published in Psychiatry Research and shared through SciPost.org that discusses the difficulties that people who have a non-parental event struggle with, and I opened my eyes. There is a Facebook group that I've joined for support in dealing with this. I would very much suggest that you befriend an older man. Robert Bly, an 80s philosopher, said, "Every young man needs an older man in his life." I'm over 60 and have been very fortunate to have had a number of these friends and mentors in my life over the years. You might start looking around at neighbors, church, social groups, maybe even an old folks' home. A lot of older folks like to talk about their history, but if you find the right one, they can and will want to be a friend/mentor. It only takes one. P.S. Your dad is probably a self-absorbed and flaky scumbag. I want to be married. I don't. I do. And your mother is likely an extremely weak and bad person not to care about her son. I actually have, to an extent. My high school swim coach became a valued mentor and taught me so many things. Upon graduating high school, I actually joined the staff as a coach and served under him for 19 years until he retired. Another set of parents of some kids I coached have become somewhat of a surrogate family as well. We have dinner every week together, which has been helping a lot. I appreciate your comment. Edited to add, the outpouring of support that I've received has been incredible. I want to thank each and every person who has commented or messaged, and I'm doing my best to reply to each of you. Whether you've had a similar experience or offered advice, from the bottom of my heart, I greatly appreciate it. Last story. Girlfriend 23 female appears to be seeing this guy 21 male behind my 25 male back. I sometimes go on her laptop to help with work stuff. Last time I was on it, a message came through from this guy I'd never heard of. I looked and they appeared to message very frequently, but the fact that I only just saw it after how many months gives me the impression that she mutes notifications from him when with me, but forgot this time around. I don't mind people having friends, but from the messages I've seen, this friendship seems to be very strange. The messages are platonic enough for the most part, but she is a very reserved girl, and the messages between us would appear to be platonic to an outsider, so I just can't take it at a surface level. I also know they messaged on multiple apps, because in some messages she was like, "Hold on, we'll go to the other chat," which just adds to my suspicions. I have no idea what this other chat is, but that's not even what upsets me the most. Like I said, I'm fine with her having friends, but there were a few conversations that make me think that it isn't just an ordinary friendship. I don't want to analyze too much of the convos in this post because it'll get too long, but a good summary would be that they seemed to confess to liking each other when they were out somewhere. And a convo the next day was basically her saying that she likes him, but doesn't know what to do, and at least for now, she's with me. Her exact words. Initially, I thought, okay, fair. A boundary was crossed and she set the record straight. However, prior to that convo, they seemed to hang out as part of a work group. But following that convo, they started hanging out alone, just the two of them. Messages are one thing, and I can just read them and come to a conclusion. But what on earth happens when they're out together? And why the hell would she hang out with a guy who she knows likes her if there wasn't some hidden motive? Oh, and there is something else. She usually stays at mine every weekend, but she doesn't tell him that. She tells him that she's hanging out with a family or going to a friend's, which makes me think she's been hiding me from him too in recent weeks. I don't know why she would do that, especially since she told him she's with me, but that was 3 months ago. I haven't told her anything because there are so many gaps and I don't want any plausible deniability. I need to see this other chat, but she is extremely private, so there is no precedent to look at her phone. I think I'm going to ask who he is and mention that I saw a message come from him and see what she says. If I get the impression that she's being dishonest, I'll tell her what I saw and go from there. I don't want to come to any conclusions before at least speaking to her, so I want to get it right. How should I go about this? Shall I wait for more proof or bring it up to her now? Now for the top advice before the mini update. Just end it. You don't need this nonsense in your life. Agreed. OP, you don't need this mess in your life. If this is how she behaves when she's your girlfriend, then what is your recourse would be if she starts doing the same if she were to be your fiancé or your wife? Please be glad that she showed you her true colors now, instead of 10 years from now. I'm going to sound like such an old prick, but you're so young. Is this really something you want to fight for? I'm an old prick too, and while I might have mooned over a girl when I was in my 20s, at my age, I have realized that this kind of bollocks is just too draining. Let her go, OP, and find someone who isn't playing two blokes off against each other. Cut your losses now and put it down to experience. In her head, she's already getting her legs blown off by him. You're just a safe bet. I guarantee it won't be too long before she really does succumb to his charms and ends up doing the dirty and bringing home something that'll have you taking antibiotics or antivirals for God knows how long. Don't do it yourself. I just have to ask, say she is biding her time while she chooses between you, and in the story you laid out, the best case scenario is she chooses you. Now what? Now you have a girlfriend who makes you insecure, who is wishy-washy, who is not fiercely loyal. You may care about her after a year, but consider this a bullet dodged. You would never want to marry somebody like this. You guys have only been dating for a year. Your relationship should still be fun, exciting, and new. If she's already bored and looking elsewhere, why would you want to spend any more years with her? Update. This probably warrants an update post, but I can't be bothered at the moment, and we'll just sum it up here. I reached out to the guy and he seems nice, but I can't tell if he's lying and I don't really care at this point. He said their relationship has been platonic, but she does act inappropriately sometimes when they're together, but he brushes her off. He said that he did like her, but sees her as a lost cause who doesn't know what she wants, so he has been trying to distance himself. He also said she's the one who reaches out to him and asks to go out, but I've seen multiple of instances of the opposite, so I don't trust what he says. I think he's trying to cover his back. Either way, I'm breaking up with her.